we need the church to be speaking truth.
Yeah.
They need to be speaking into this culture. They need to be talking about the issues that face us, because the church has been too quiet and they've been too afraid to speak of what's happening in our homes. Boy, we see what's happening in our homes, right? In our schools.
Right.
We see the attack on the family.
Hey everybody, James Ward here. Welcome back to Cultural Conversations podcast, meeting cultural challenges with biblical solutions. Two things are true. We got lots of solutions that we need in society today. And most importantly, we're thankful for the Word of God to have biblical solutions to the challenges that we're facing. And I'm so excited to have a dear friend, a woman that Sharon and I respect and admire so much. Debbie Kraulidis is here. And just so that you know, Debbie is a world changer. She's successfully combined a dynamic career in the television entertainment industry with politics, special events, and music as well. And her resume includes working on just many top-rated national TV shows and syndications, national news stories, working with celebrities and music premieres as well. And she's passionately utilized her professional experience in serving the conservative and the pro-family movement. She's a leader and a mover and a shaker in that industry. We're going to talk about that so much. She's been involved in advocating with conservative policies and causes. But you say that your greatest treasure is your husband, Tim, and their three amazing children. So she's not only vice president of Moms for America, she's a mom in America. She's actually has a great family that she's leading and has so much experience. And so we're excited to hear from Debbie. My friend, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me.
Thank you. What a great lead into that. All to God's glory.
Yeah.
You know, when we look at what God has done in our lives, we say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and amen. Even that prayer that we started with, this is all God's kingdom here on earth, and we are just so delighted to be servants for his kingdom and for his message. So thank you. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
My pleasure. It's so good to be together. And you said it, being servants. You know, the Bible tells us that we're co-laborers together with Christ, fellow workers together with God. Isn't it pretty amazing that God, sovereign, but he elected to set things up in the world, his kingdom, so that he partners with us, calls us into service to be ambassadors for Christ. Isn't that a humbling thought?
It is a humbling thought, and it is a great honor.
Yeah.
And every day when we get up, we have to decide where we're going, what we're doing, how we serve him, how we can be a light, we can be a vessel, not only in the world, you know, in this kingdom here, but in our homes. And that's what we concentrate on. I know that's your biggest ministry here, you know, at the church. I mean, it all begins in our family, and it begins what God's called us to do, to be a wife, to be a mother, to be the light in a very dark world. And, you know, this culture is challenging. So it all begins in the home, and thank God that he designed this so beautifely. Yeah. I mean, he figured this all out. We just got to do it right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You stated that so well, and we'll talk about family. That's really kind of the last stance. I think the last place of defense for our values. I mean, our children and our grandchildren. That we're not just fighting for us. We're fighting for multiple generations to come, and so much to say. I like to start, you know, by reminding us sometimes we're not human doings. We're human beings, and everything that we do is really innate. It's who we are. It's what we are wired to do. It's convictional living for us. I think that we're in a time that everyone, and not in a morbid way, but you kind of got to know what you're willing to live for and die for in these times based upon your faith and your convictions. Talk to us a little bit about Debbie K., the person. You're normally on the producer, the executive producer side, but today we get to hear from you. So just a little bit about your person and your conviction. What inspires you? What motivates you and drives you to do what you do?
Well, thankfully, you know, I was raised in a Christian home. My mom and dad, to God be the glory, you know, taught us that Jesus is the reason, not just for a season, but all the time. And that really was the foundation of my life, you know. And I had some challenges when I was growing up. I kind of had to come back and commit my heart to the Lord because I had a very hard time when my dad passed away. So we've all go through these challenges where we have to figure out what do we understand? What do we believe? What would we want our life to look like? What would we want our marriage, our home, our children? And so I've been on a journey all of my life, just trying to serve the Lord as much as I can, to be a light. I've got very involved in the pro-life movement. I got very involved with, actually in the entertainment industry with Extra. I worked there for 20-something years, interviewing celebrities. God's opened up all these interesting opportunities for me, but always at the heart of it is I wanted to be involved in ministry and making a difference. And you take all those pieces and you use those experience. So if you work in all the media aspects, it's wonderful. But at the end of the day, it's having conversations like this. It's inspiring people in their walk, in their home, and in their life. And to God be the glory, because that's really, if we can get that stabilized, I don't know how you do it any other way.
Right.
You can muddle through.
Yeah.
But if you don't get that stabilized, you really cannot live the life that God's called you to do, or parent your children, or survive in a marriage. I mean, I'm at 31 years now.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
you know, and to God be the glory, right? Because the world would say as soon as it gets tough or difficult, you just bail. And we're called to such a higher standard. You know, God says, no, you're going to stick it through. You're going to be an example to your kids, and you're going to be a light in this world. It doesn't mean we're doing it perfect,
Right.
but we're actually doing what God's called us to do.
Yeah, it's so refreshing. You know, you just ended by saying that we don't do it perfectly.
No.
The word in Hebrews 11:6 tells us, but without faith, it's impossible to please God. We sometimes read that without results, without success, it's impossible to please God, and that's not what the Bible says. It simply says, without faith, you know, you're just being willing to believe God and act on His word. That pleases God, and let Him take care of the results.
And let Him guide you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think of faith, you know, you can't do anything without faith. You can't move a mountain yourself. You can't have faith like a mustard seed. It all comes from Him.
Yeah.
So when He's directing and guiding you, we have to have the ears to listen and the eyes to see and the heart to respond. You know, that's it. I say to my kids, we've got to have the heart to respond to Him, because sometimes that's the most humbling, because it's not maybe our plans.
Right.
Maybe it's not our vision, but in the end, we know that it is His vision, which is the best for us. So, you know, we're all just really trying. We're trying to do the best that we can in our homes and in our country.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned a term a few moments ago, which I think is so appropriate. You always had a heart for ministry, and sometimes in a Christian setting, we think ministry, Ephesians 4, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. Absolutely, we need those offices in the Church of Jesus Christ. But every believer is called to ministry, and we're not called to be the light and the salt of the church, but the light of the world, the salt of the earth. And so, talk a little bit about every believer engaging in ministry to affect the world, to affect culture. We're going to get into some of the work that you're doing with the school board and policies and the world. The light is needed in the dark places of the world. So talk to any person who thinks, well, I'm not called to ministry, but no, you are called to ministry if you're a person of faith.
Absolutely. When we give our heart to the Lord and we ask Him to guide us and direct us, and we say, Lord, we're renewed in you. We are dead to our old self. We are new in you. He has great plans for us. You know, He's always had great plans for us. That's why it's so beautiful to recognize that God called us and knit us together in our parents' womb, in our mother's womb. You know, He's got big plans for everyone. And whether, you know, I say this to everyone, whether you are changing a diaper at home, or you are teaching your child with homeschooling, whether it's ministering to your husband or in your church, or you are involved in your school board, or you work outside of the home, you bring Christ with you, because He is inside of you. And every day we get a chance to pray, to lift, to minister, to help, to serve. One of the biggest things that we try to preach in my home is serving. That's what Christ did. He served one another. And I think that's really one of the greatest ways to be a witness, is to serve one another. If you can't serve, if you can't lead by serving, you'll never really truly lead, and you'll never really teach your children to give and to be a blessing to anyone. And you surely won't get along in your marriage if you can't serve one another.
Yeah.
So I think there's just so many beautiful ways that you can be a part of ministry. And it's not like you say, you do not have to lead a Bible study at church.
Right.
That's great if you do.
Yep.
But you may be just praying for staff. You may just be sending a card. You may be just praying for someone there's so many people that are having so many challenges. And the more we make it obvious that we're a part of God's kingdom, that we're his ambassadors, in this world, the more opportunities you get. When you ask God to say, hey, how can I serve? How can I bless? How can I minister? Buckle up.
Right.
Because he's going to use you. And that's, again, at the heart of serving and blessing others.
Right.
So I think if we can get that in our minds, and I have to remind myself this every day, because we just tend to be self-centered,
Right.
That how can I serve? How can I bless? How can I help someone?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's challenging, but that's where it lies.
Thank you for sharing that. I think sometimes folks will, maybe go on social media and see you in the White House, see us doing kind of the things that we do, but not understand when you lift the hood, what's really behind that, and your conviction about your family first being your first priority, having a strong marriage, even just your family connection to the church. Talk a little bit, again, just about that foundation. We got plenty to build and to go up, but that foundation of faith and family, and even families being plugged into churches. What do you see from your perspective pastors should be doing, and what kind of sermons should we be preaching to actually empower folks to actually go out and make a difference in the world?
Great question, because the church is misplaced.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it has been too quiet.
Yeah.
And parents, husbands and wives, we need the church to be speaking truth.
Yeah.
They need to be speaking into this culture. They need to be talking about the issues that face us, because the church has been too quiet and they've been too afraid to speak of what's happening in our homes. Boy, we see what's happening in our homes, right? In our schools.
Right.
We see the attack on the family. We see the attack on marriages, whether it's from pornography to, whatever all this stuff is on Instagram, all the challenges for men, all the challenges for parents to remain the sole influencers in their kids' lives. The world has decided that they're going to raise your kids and that they're going to tell you how to be married, and they're going to redefine gender. They're going to just take it all over. And then the church has been just too quiet. So for me, I'm asking the church and the pastors like yourself to rise up and talk about that. Not be afraid to talk about these things from the pulpit, because you are the shepherds. You are the ones that are teaching us. And that helps us, right? We need to come here. We can't solely rely on church, because we got to be opening our Bible. We've got to be meeting and ministering and in small groups or held accountable within our own home. But we need the church to be speaking clearly about life. I mean, I just can go on and on that they've just been too quiet about. We need that help. We need that help. And then two, we, moms, dads, we need to be in church.
So well said.
Because if we're not, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And I'm a little displaced. I mean, we were at a church for a long time, and the pastor left, and now we're kind of, been on a journey trying to find home. And it's hard to find a home.
Right.
It's hard to find a place where you find that it is your family. But whatever it takes, whatever it is, you have to be in church with your family. You have to be lifting up your day with your family. You have to be in prayer with your husband. You just can't do it. I say you can muddle along and love each other and make it, but you want to make it good. You want to make it big. Yep. And again, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but you want to be on that journey. You're training your children to look for husbands and wives. Yeah. You are still working out your marriages until the day you die. Right. And then you become grandparents. I mean, you need God's foundation in your home, in a church, and with those friends around you that will keep you accountable and will help you in your journey with Christ.
Yeah, so well stated. And it's true. I concur 1,000% with what you're saying. I think of passages like 1 John 5:19. It says that we know the whole world lies under the sway or the influence of the evil one. Temporarily, of course, Jesus is going to come, but temporarily the entire world is under the sway or the influence of the evil one. So it's expected to see that government and school boards and institutions and universities are under demonic and satanic influence. The church is the last place of refuge families being plugged into the church, that we can be with people of like precious faith and
Right.
speak truth, speak with moral and spiritual clarity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you helped us understand the importance of being plugged into the local church.
Well, I know you're preaching the word, and
Yeah.
you're bringing it to your congregation all across the countries you travel to. But really, it's the church, it's the family, and it's America.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got to figure this out. We've got to love God.
Yeah.
We have to love and serve our family, and we have to protect this land,
Yeah.
the last beacon of hope, so we can parent our kids.
So true.
So we can have the freedom of religion. So we can speak freely. The Constitution gives us an amazing rights and liberties. But again, it all comes back to the biblical foundation.
Yep.
That, the Constitution and the founders, all that, they were people who understood what the Bible meant. They they understood salvation. And they understood that there was something bigger than them.
Sure did. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you bring up another point. I'm thinking about this. It's easier to agree, or should be easier to agree theologically than it is politically. And so the church should also be a place where believers can unify around faith and the basic truth and the basic tenets of God's word before we engage in the world to try to solve the world's problems. I think we got to figure out unity a little better, even in the church, just around our faith, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. And then we can go out and kind of make sense of a lot of the madness that we're seeing in society.
yeah, well, we see the biggest attack is dividing.
Mm-hmm.
If we can make someone an oppressor, if we can divide people on race, if we can divide people on sexuality, if we can divide people on whether you support blue or you're against the police. I mean, it's all about dividing.
Correct.
And that's when the biggest strife comes. And that's when all heck breaks loose. So unity, saying, what can we say yes to, Pastor?
Yeah.
What can we say yes to? We love one another not based on skin.
Right.
We love one another because we're a part of the church body. God created us all equal. He gave us all inalienable rights.
Yep.
He loves us. He called us by name. He's given us a land to live freely.
So true.
There's a lot of things to say yes to, and sometimes it's hard to say yes to God's principles. Right?
Right.
Sometimes it's hard.
It is.
I mean, Jesus offended people.
Right.
He sure did.
Right.
He put a line in the sand, and he said, we have to figure out where we lie.
Yeah.
And then once we get there, which is a part of our journey, that is so unifying and it's so freeing, isn't it?
Truth is not antithetical to love at all.
Right.
Right. The two are synonymous. So another thought, you're engaged. I mean, you're a difference maker nationally and internationally. And I think there was, once upon a time, our focus was just, I can live in my house in my neighborhood with my, picket fence and my dog and enjoy a good life. And there was a time, even I think, me growing up as a kid, you could kind of trust society and civic leaders to kind of do their part.
Right.
That's all changed now. And so I think there's this idea that before, engaging in marketplace, engaging in the government, engaging in culture it was viewed as being at the expense of the family. Now you almost have to engage in the culture to protect and defend the family. In other words, you can't defend your family just within the four walls of your home. Now you have to defend your family by going out into government. You need to be involved in the school boards. You got to get engaged in policy making and advocacy. Talk about that a little bit in terms of not the internal perspective, I'm going to stay here to protect my family, but I've got to go and actually take ground culturally, morally, ethically in society to now protect my family, because I can't insulate my family from technology and exposure to policy that's being set that's antithetical to the values that are inside my home. So can you talk a little bit about you're modeling what it means to be a cultural missionary, to actually go out to protect your family and not just staying home?
Yeah. The world has changed. And it has been changing this mission to destroy family, to attack parental rights, to take over the educational system, to take moms out of the home, put them in the workplace, the feminist movement.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you broke all this down, this has been a long journey
Yeah.
of taking over the culture, taking over the whole worldview. And I think we've seen it more now than ever. There's a lot of things that lined up, from COVID to very liberal administration. I mean, just shameless ideology. And it has become so vocal and has become so bold that everyone has noticed it now. And everyone is waking up. Our schools are indoctrinating camps. Not every teacher's bad. Not every book is bad. You know, everyone's like, oh my gosh, you guys are so extreme. No. But there is bad teachers.
Right.
There is an indoctrination in the school, and there are bad books, very bad books, in the library, teaching your kids things that you would never be able to say in public.
Right.
And you can't, they'll shut you down in a school board meeting. We know that technology is, I mean, it's for good and it's for bad. But the bad is so bad.
So true.
And so you have to just really, I mean, I kept my son off of social media until he was 18. People said, you can't do it. You can. You have to figure out what those, Pastor, right?
Yeah.
You have to decide when you have a baby, at 6 months old, you have to decide, you're going to raise that baby on an iPad? Because all of a sudden that whole brain changes from 6 months old on.
True. Yeah.
It becomes a person in your household, technology.
Yep.
So we've got technology.
The new babysitter.
Right. Oh, right. And in fact, when I ever in the restaurant and I see someone with a coloring book and crayons, you know what, I go up to that mom and I say, good job, Mama. Good job, Mama. If they get little toys, I carry toys in my purse always with the kids with, building blocks. Good job, Mom and Dad. Good job. So it's not only, it's technology, and that has just evolved all the way through to the school system. You have to be involved in your school. You have to know what your kids are being taught. It's really iffy now whether you can trust public education at all.
So true.
Yeah. You have to be super comfortable with that. You have to know that they're going to teach them things that are not in your wheelhouse, not your conviction. They can do things and will do things without your notification.
Yeah.
They will use different names. They will transition children. We've seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
They will just abuse you as a parent.
Yeah.
Not always, not every, but often.
Absolutely.
Very often.
Yeah.
So you may have to take kids out of public school. I took my latest one, my youngest one, out, put him in a Christian, a faith-based school. You may have to homeschool. You have to look at the bills that are being passed. I mean, we're here in Illinois. Boy, you want to talk about an assault? They're trying to complicate and wipe out homeschooling. Or they'll take away your parental rights. If they can break you down, if they can crush you, if they can parent your children, they know that they have the next generation. And we're not letting that happen. We are empowering moms. We're saying, you are the greatest influence. So when I say this, moms, it's like, everyone's like, what about the dads? We love the dads.
Yeah.
We're the moms group that love the dads. So there's it's not an absence of the dads.
Right.
It's just our mission is to moms.
Right.
And we know if we affect the moms, we affect the husbands. We know if we affect the moms, we affect the kids. And affecting is probably not the best word. It's empower.
Yeah.
We empower and inspire moms. They will go to their school board meetings. They will hear what's happening. They will understand if they're trying to cause racial division, if they're trying to transition, if they're trying to socially, take over the message of the family. And they will make people to be the bad guys, meaning the parents. Yeah. So you've got to be all-time high. Like red alert. You have got to know what is going on.
Right. Never been more critical than it is
Never been
now.
more critical.
Yeah, right.
And again, never been more important to be in church with a foundation with your family in your home, because where do you get the information from? What drives you? You can only, I remember my brother telling me this a long time ago. You can be good, but what drives good? I just want to be good today. What drives good?
Right.
But Jesus' conviction, not disappointing my father, being called, being a missionary wherever I go, knowing that this is my legacy, my kids, and that I'm going to, have to report. I got to give a really big report when I get up there. And I'm going to try to say that I did the best that I could.
Right. So you gender exclusivity is such an important, it's a vital part. It's essential with God's creative order itself. And you just clarified, and it should be clarified, that it's never a moms versus dad. It's moms and dad.
Yeah.
And the gender exclusivity that God created that is fundamental to society. Talk a little bit, because when we talk about schools and education now and the need to homeschool or to get involved in Christian education, the greatest battle is a battle for gender. That you're talking about the proliferation of society itself. If we lose that battle, you're talking about society imploding, and we're beginning to see that. So talk a little bit for a moment just in terms of what I call the distinction between biblical femininity and cultural femininity. The cultural feminist movement is this ideology not aligned with Scripture, but what do you say in terms of the importance of biblical femininity? You hear the attack against the trad wife or the traditional wife that we've now kind of demonized.
Oh, it's coming back, though. Do you know the traditional wives are coming back?
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
actually a whole movement because they're figuring it out.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, and I have interviewed a lot of former feminists on the podcast for Moms for America, and they were sold the bill, and that, freeze your eggs, men are bosses, kids are prison, you're walking around with a chain. I mean, it's just so crazy. Like, what do we think as women we could not do in today's world?
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
We could be anything we want to be, and a husband that's going to cover us and protect us and guide us and love us and help us raise our children and share life together.
Right.
I mean, that is Genesis 2, right? He created this. He knew that we needed a father. Any mom that's out here that is raising children by herself, thank God that is not me. Yeah. They know how tough it is without a father. That is nothing that anyone has to explain to them. They need a father in their kid's life. Those kids need a father in their life. Those kids need a mother in their life. They need to see healthy roles as male and female. Right. They have to have this in order to do the best, that set them up the best. And again, there's things that happen and horrible stories, and a woman has to leave her man. There's abuse, whatever that. I'm not talking about those. Right. I'm just talking about the situations that are justifiable biblically. But in essence, to thrive, we need men and women together, married, building a home, building a foundation, and raising their kids with the principles that God has put in His Word. And it's the women that got us in this. Yeah. They really did. Women are just way too off the charts a lot of time. And I'm talking to my girls here. We have got to get it together.
You know why this conversation is important? Because I think in some instances, and I think this is some of the cultural feminist movement, it has kind of deified men and women as though many women can't do any wrong. And women do a lot of wrong. And we have to call it out as men, as women of God. It needs to be called out for us to raise the standard. I'm glad to hear you say, you know what, we got to do better. We got to get our act together and take responsibility for our part in a lot of the things that we're saying going wrong in our nation.
Yeah. You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
I'm an independent woman. Well, I'm glad you're independent. That's great. But you can be very lonely later in life. Yeah. And that's what we hear a lot of times. Right. Women have frozen their eggs.
The culture doesn't speak to that. Oh, no, come to the depression. The discouragement.
Right. Yeah. And then they've missed their childbearing years. And some women can't have children, and of course, again, I'm not talking about the small percentage. I'm talking about the overall message. You don't need a husband. You don't need a dad. You can get inseminated. You can raise the kid on your own. It's just not the right way. Right. It happens, and people do it, but the best plan, and I'm not saying I hate to say that I'm not attacking those women, because there's different stories around this. Yeah. But in general, the lie has been sold that women can do it all by themselves. Right. And we can't. And the thing that's great about men is they know they can't do it by themselves. Right. That's really the greatest part about men.
God tells us we can. Right. He created a help suitable. Right. I often say, who needed the help? God never tell the women you needed help. My husband's like,
honey, I know we're going to do this without you. Yeah. Because we are the helpmates. Yep. So I think that's where we get a little big for our britches, because we're the helpers. We can do it. Yep. But we're made to help another.
That's right.
We're made to nurture. Yep. We're made to with our children. And just the most that we can do is try to build the healthiest family
Yeah.
that God will bless you with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think the women have gotten it wrong. I think the women that understand they've gotten it wrong are kind of sad about it. And many of them are kind of like, trying to fix it now.
Yeah.
So to God be the glory.
Yeah.
And men don't want to marry another man.
Right. It's so true. Yeah.
They don't want to marry somebody that's going to be the boss.
We're going to take a break and come back. But something you just shared is our messaging is so similar that the wife being a help suitable is the very thing that makes the wife great. And the cultural feminist movement has turned around that women want to be helped instead of recognizing that your glory is the help. You're God's help for men. And so we're going to talk about that. I want to talk a lot more about Moms for America. You guys are doing some amazing things. You have resources for women.
We do.
You're mobilizing women across the country. We're going to talk about that. We'll be right back in a few moments here with my friend, Debbie Kraulidis, Vice President of Moms for America. Go to Debbie K Music to find out about what Deb is doing, and also momsforamerica.us.
Yep.
Momsforamerica.us. Got some amazing resources there. We'll be right back with more cultural conversations.
You shouldn't have to choose between screen time and your values. What if the content your kids watched pointed them back to God? At home or in the classroom, TLN Plus is where learning and values come together. Explore the wonders of God's creation through science, travel the globe uncovering ancient New Testament manuscripts, and follow the journeys of Christian missionaries, all from your living room. TLN Plus is where faith and learning come to life. Stream life-changing biblical content with you in mind.
Friends, I want to thank you for supporting Cultural Conversations podcast, Meeting Cultural Challenges with Biblical Solutions. My aim is to restore the art of respectful dialogue in dealing with the tough issues of our day from a biblical perspective. To see and listen to more great talks and interviews with interesting, inspiring, and intelligent people, visit tlnmedia.com/cultural conversations. And be sure to subscribe, like, and share our content with as many people as you can. It helps us out and helps us to help you by bringing you more great content. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching. Welcome back, friends. I'm here with my friend Debbie Kraulidis, Vice President of Moms for America. We had an amazing first segment here. We want to talk a little bit about Moms for America, the organization, what you do. I feel like there are times that you'll leave a meeting in D.C., the room, and I feel like we'll walk in, or we leave a room and you'll walk in. We're in the same space. It's got so many great friends and collaborating together on some great things, which I'm so excited about. But I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing to mobilize moms across America. So tell us a little bit about what Moms for America, what the organization is all about for those, especially women who may not have heard of Moms for America. Why should they get involved? What's your role? What does your day-to-day involvement look like in that organization?
Okay, well, yes to the fact that we're passing each other, and I'm like, we got to get on the same schedule here. Love your wife.
Yes.
Love all that you're doing. Just so glad to become friends, this year with you guys and all that you're doing here at TLN. So, yes, Moms for America. We are reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution. This organization was started 21 years ago by Kimberly Fletcher. She's the founder and president.
She's an amazing leader.
Yeah, she's so great. I've been with them for eight and a half years now.
Okay.
I was looking for an organization or organization ministry, something that would inspire, encourage, and help moms, women in their journey in this culture. And there really wasn't that much out there. And I happened to see an ad on Facebook for this Moms March that they were doing through a series of events. Sent her my resume, how can I help? And then she said, come on out here, help me produce this Moms March. And we did. Mm-hmm. She had Sarah Palin, she had Candy Carson, she had Missy Robertson. She had this great lineup of moms that really kind of wanted to respond a little bit to the Women's March, which is what we were just talking about, really, the hyper-feminism movement. And we just felt like, wow, these women are not speaking for conservative women. They're not speaking for me.
Right.
And so we kind of had this rally in Nebraska, and ever since then I've been helping her with my media, helping her produce production. I came on their board, became a part of their leadership team, and then a couple years ago they asked me to be vice president. So I am delighted to be speaking around the country and doing media for them. I host the podcast, our weekly podcast, where we talk to conservative leaders and everyday moms that are making a difference in their home and in their community. And I just help with all their live events across the country. That's really what my area is, production and live events. We go to the moms, we hold summits, we hold conferences. We have fundraisers around the country, kind of, educating people about what we do. We go to Washington a lot now. We worked pretty hard, to get President Trump in leadership because we believed that we needed a new, someone new at the helm there.
Absolutely.
And we work with other candidates. We work with school boards. We provide brochures. We provide webinars. We provide seminars. Anything, this is how I would say this, anything that you're going to discuss in your home, at your kitchen table with your kids, we have something on that. And we want to support the moms. We want to support the moms because they need a lot of help. They've got to figure out, it's so much more complicated, like we were just talking about. So whether it's social media, whether it's the fentanyl crisis, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your home, whether it's how to raise patriotic kids, how to teach the principles of liberty.
Vaccines, diet,
everything.
All those things.
Yeah. Menopause. I mean, we just talk about it all because all those are mom issues. And if you really think about it, from where you spend your dollar to where your kids go to school or what they eat, it's all a mom issue.
Yeah. But
we run, right? We're the big old CEO of our house. And so we are managing it all.
So well said. Yeah. Talk a little bit about, I say the distinction is, it's not right versus left, it's right versus wrong. So help bring some clarity, because I think some folks get hung up on terms like conservative, and you're like, okay, put that on the shelf for a moment. We're talking about right versus wrong. And when we can say conservative, generally speaking, we're talking about the Bible being the source of moral authority, spiritual and moral authority for us, and we're adhering to that. So can you talk a little bit, just for anybody who may be listening, say, you know what, I'm a mom, but I think I have left-leaning views. Just, it's too late for that. We're talking about righteousness versus unrighteousness. Can you talk about just the evil that we're facing today and the need for Moms for America helping women to protect their children?
You're right, because the word right and left, automatically Republican, Democrat, all of a sudden it just becomes, okay, this is political. So we're a non-for-profit. We are not a political organization at all. We are moms that love our families and we love our country.
That's it.
We're not a Christian organization either, but so many of our moms are faith-filled, and we want to raise faith-filled children. We want to raise patriotic children. We want to raise children that love God, love country, love family. All those things are where we're going to help moms in that journey. And so right and left, Republican, Democrat, you're right. The basis is, what do you believe? What drives you? What moral convictions do you have? What do you say yes to biblically? Or what drives you? I mean, you talk about left or progressive. I mean, we did a Protecting Women's Sports press conference in Washington, D.C. I had a lot of mid to left progressive Democratic women in on that because they don't think that men should be competing in women's sports. All of a sudden, these issues have become political. Parental rights is political. Life is political. Men and women's sports is political. What is that? Racial division is political. All these things have become political, and they're not. They are basically, what is right, what is wrong. I don't mean right, left. I mean right and wrong.
That's correct.
Because these are the things we have to deal with every day with our kids, in our marriage, in our workplace. Can you fly the flag? What does that make you if you fly the American flag? When is the American flag political? But it's become political. It's just because the tactic of division has worked so well.
Sure has.
That's why we got to come back to the unity that you talked about earlier. What unifies us? We try to talk about what unifies us as moms, And how can we help you with that? If you don't agree with this, you don't have to do this. But I'm telling you, out of our list of things, you will agree.
Mm-hmm.
We probably agree on much more than we disagree.
So true. Yeah, yeah. I read something one day. I have a big old American flag outside of our home, Sharon and and I read something online, one day was so ignorant that if a person has an American flag outside of their home, they're probably racist. That's how debased the thinking has become. And it's if we don't love our country, what do we have left? Where are we going to go? And typically I find that people that have issue with that, they haven't traveled anywhere. They haven't been anywhere to appreciate what America is and what a fabulous dream our nation is.
So true. In fact, my daughter and I yesterday, we say this so often. Could you imagine being born as a female?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, girls, you really got to know your history here. You have to know what communism brings.
Yeah.
You have to understand what happens in other countries. Could you imagine being born a woman in some of these countries?
Yeah.
0 rights.
Absolutely. Yep.
And 0 rights.
Right.
And we're so thankful for America. So thankful for these opportunities and this liberty and this freedom that we have. And we do live in the greatest country. Mm-hmm. Our history is speckled with a lot of issues. Yep. No one ever denies that.
Yep.
But we always have been trying to correct and fix
Yep.
and make America the greatest country.
That's right.
Again, it's not perfect. Nobody is.
Right.
No country ever is. And our history is tainted. We've had major problems, but we also have had major victories.
Absolutely.
And we also have major opportunities. And just a beautiful opportunity for all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're black. It doesn't matter whether you're white. It doesn't matter if you're male or female.
That's right.
Those are inalienable rights. God's given us that in his word and when he created us.
Yep.
And America is the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah, I'm reminded.
No one can deny that.
Is it Proverbs 29 when God, tells the Jewish people, pray for the peace of Babylon, for in its peace you will have peace. Mm-hmm. And I mean, of course, they were in Babylonian exile, but God tells them, you know what? Pray for peace in exile because you're there, and we're here in America. So every individual needs to be a patriot and a defender of what our country represents. Talk about the importance of policy, advocacy, lobbying. Sometimes those terms, politics, gets an impression that is dirty and we shouldn't be involved. We talked earlier about the church being silent. I think that's a huge mistake that we kind of felt like, well, the church, we just kind of need to stay out of politics. It's like, no, we're in the business of people. Mm-hmm. We're in the business of souls. We're in the business of people living under the blessing and the quality of life that God intended. And you cannot do that separate from influencing policy, because there are people there that are making policy. Mm-hmm. And so you're in out of D.C. all the time. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the importance of being on the ground in D.C., lobbying, meeting with lawmakers, talking with lawmakers to help them bring moral clarity to their values, how they vote, what bills and what legislation they stand behind. Talk about the importance of moms being in that space, advocating, again, for what's necessary for us to raise successful families.
I also was a chief of staff here in Illinois for a state representative for 7.5 years. So I was also in Springfield and to D.C. Mm-hmm. And you tend to hear mostly from the people, small crowd, loud crowd. Yeah. But the people that agree, maybe the percent, the majority, they just don't let their voices be heard. So not only do we have to be opposing, we have to be supporting, and we have to let our legislators know about that. And it does take time to fill out forms, to call, to meet with your state representatives, your congressional leaders. It does take time, but two things: elections have consequences. So if we get someone in that is not for our values, we don't vote our values. Moms, if you're not voting your values, you got to get that figured out, because it's very, very important. You got to figure out what your values are, and you got to understand, how important your vote is. 2, elections have consequences. So if we're not voting and we're not in the game, then somebody else is going to determine what's happening in your home and
So
in your
true.
community, in your country,
Yeah.
and in your state.
Mm-hmm.
And 3, let's be engaged to some level. You can always follow us on Facebook. You can always look at nonpartisan voting guides. There's a lot of avenues for people now to look at maybe the parties, what they agree with. You can even take a test now, what party maybe you agree with most. And the parties have changed.
So
And
true.
I think that's a little bit of some of the things that, people have to look at. What am I saying yes to? And what am I voting for? If life is precious, if parental rights are important to you, if you believe that everything is God-given, you believe in the Constitution, you believe in traditional family values or traditional marriage, all these things you have to look at.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out who's voting that way and who will protect those, right? Who will protect those? So yes, we do. A lot of moms get involved in the school board level. They get involved in their city council level. They get involved in their state level because they understand those. They'll take homeschooling, for instance, here in Illinois. It's happening in California. I mean, they're going to try to, really take away some of the parental rights with homeschooling.
Yeah.
And if you're a homeschooler, you better really get involved in that bill. You better understand that bill. You better go to Springfield for that bill. You better talk to your legislators about that bill. You better you better call, because you have to defend what's important to you.
Right.
That's basic.
Yeah.
But somehow we think, policy, legislation, just, they're elected, let them doing it. Well, they're not always good gals or good guys.
You're right. And you mentioned organizations like Moms for America is so needed to bring clarity, because the political parties are changing and they're constantly going through evolutions. And there's all kinds of divisions and factions within.
Even within, right.
Even within.
The Republican Party, within the Democratic Party, within, oh my gosh, life is just nothing but complicated.
Yeah.
And surely politics is the most complicated, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
That and being in the church are probably two really complicated.
The two things that people told you not to talk about, religion and politics, is what we need to be talking about, religion and politics. Yeah.
And, and respectfully.
Yeah.
We may agree, we may not agree, but we don't have to divide families over this.
Yeah.
We don't have to abandon one another. There's divisions in homes. In fact, there was a whole campaign recently that if your parents or family members don't agree with you and your stand, disown them.
Yeah.
It was a
sad.
movement.
Yeah.
Who does stuff like that? No, you get in there, you work it out.
Mm-hmm.
You may not agree, but you can still love one another.
Yeah.
Because if you don't agree with them, they don't agree with you. It's two-sided, right?
Yeah.
When you don't agree or adopt those ideologies, it goes both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why does one person get excommunicated where the other person doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to figure this out. Again, going back to really trying to love one another and be united. And as soon as that division comes in, we have to say, nah, nope, not happening here.
Right. I describe it, that we're in a two-party system basically here in America. It's like an expressway, if it's Interstate 80, it goes east and it goes west. But, both directions, there are multiple lanes within I-80 East. There are multiple lanes within I-80 West. And not everybody's in the same lane, but you at least got to figure out who's going in the right direction and who's going in the wrong direction. And that's how I would frame the conservative movement. Mm-hmm. You got to figure out who's at least going in the right direction. But there are different lanes, and not everybody's in the same lane, and you don't need to agree with everybody that's in other lanes.
And people are in different parts of their journey, right? They might have what we see, and I'll say the conservative movement, just for lack of a better term, is something has touched them in their home. Yeah. Something hit them. So and all of a sudden, it's true. Like, okay, this is hitting me here.
Now the gloves are going to come out.
Wow, this has been happening all across the country. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. And then all of a sudden, you woke up Mama.
Yeah.
And Mama Bear ain't happy. Yeah. And then Mama Bear gets Papa Bear worked up. Yeah. And then we got to figure it out in our home. Yeah. We got to figure it out at our school.
It's a good thing.
We got to figure it out in our community. Yeah. And that's really what happens. Someone gets woken up because it is everything, all the craziness is touching every family.
Yeah.
There's
It really
no
is.
doubt about that.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, and we're continuing for future generations. This is about our children and our grandchildren, and them paying the price of much of what we're seeing
And
today.
the assault on our kids, that's really what makes me so heartbroken. There's just an assault on the kids, on their gender, on their identity, on God in their life, on just on the hearts and souls of them. They're sneaky. The bad guys are sneaky, and they're really, really getting it in everywhere.
They are.
And there's nothing more precious than our children that we've given birth to, that we've trained and raised and love. And I keep saying to the moms, when it gets tough at home and they feel like they've got it figured out or they're going to do this, you just got to keep saying to them, no one loves you more than mom and dad.
Yeah.
No one.
So true.
No one loves you more.
A couple things here. Three actions I think about for Moms for America: activating women, empowering women, mobilizing women. Just talk to each one of those for a moment in terms of the services that you provide for women to be activated, empowered, and mobilized.
Yeah. Well, activating sometimes is our C4 side, which would kind of be our action. It works on bills and policy, endorsements of candidates. So it's kind of like our action side. So if you want to get politically involved, or you want to run for school board, or you're just, fearful of going to school board meetings or your council meetings, or how to handle civic engagement, that's all on our C4 side, which is Moms for America Action. It's MFA Action, MFAaction.com.
Okay.
Or I think it's .com or .us. I'm not sure, but it's, if you look up Moms for America Action, you will find it.
Sure.
So that's kind of our activist side. As far as empowering and inspiring moms, we do that with, we have cottage meetings, which is kind of like our showcase, our premier signature teachings. It's 12 teachings of the principles of liberty.
Okay.
So we do that. We offer that online. We have Healing of America. We teach the Constitution. We have, again, webinars and seminars on every subject you can imagine, from healing after an abortion to fentanyl, to screen time, to how to raise patriotic kids, webinars on every subject. And those are regular on momsforamerica.us. So we train. And then once you educate and train and inspire, you host the podcast, you have brochures, you have all this information. We have summits across the country. We have conferences across the country. Again, training moms, encouraging moms, inspiring moms in their role, validating who they are, the greatest influence in their kids' lives. The hand that rocks the cradle definitely rules the world. That's so true, because you're raising them. So we train and inspire. We activate as far as political and endorsements and legislation and policy. And then moms take it to the next level. They take those principles that they learn and they teach them to their kids. They talk about them in the car. They pray with them at night. They share the books that we, share with them. They talk about those important issues. So it's kind of like, moms are really good. Women are really good about, you get the scoop, and then we love to share the scoop. And so that's what we do. We kind of support moms in a really powerful way in their journey through motherhood. Support group. That's really what we do.
So it's such a vital initiative. And just, we got about a minute left. What would you say? There's a mom listening right now, saying, well, Debbie K, she's got it together and she's making things happen. But that conviction years ago for you to do something, speak to that mom who may be where you were, 20 or 25 years ago or so, just starting out, about getting engaged, being encouraged to take action. What can she do? What would you give her as step number one in terms of how do you move forward to care for what's important to you?
Well, I do attribute it to, I was raised by great Christian parents. Not perfect, but great. And so if we as moms can get our foundation solidified in our home, in our marriage, go to church, pray with your kids, open up the Bible. It's so much bigger than you. And you need so much more help than just yourself. So get your foundation stabilized, because the world will crumble your home. It will ruin your children.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a scare tactic. It's just like you have to protect them.
Right.
And you have to protect your marriage. And if you're not getting some of the basics together, it has to become your priority, because God will help you. He is on the journey with you. He has called you. He has a hedge of protection of your family and your marriage. And he wants you to be the best mom that you can be and the best wife. So you just have to, don't let the world define who you are or who your children are. You figure it out with your Savior, and you, mama, spread it out at home and make it your number one priority.
Yep.
And get your mamas around you.
Yeah.
Get good mamas around you
build a
in your
tribe.
church. And Moms for America.
Yeah.
Join the movement. You know, get involved in the small groups at church, and just really build up your fortress.
Yep.
Take it by storm.
That's it. Yep.
And we can do it. We
Yep.
can do all things through Christ who strengthened us.
Debbie, so amazing. You could always do motivational speaking. You're great at it. So
it's
inspiring.
for me too.
We need to hear it.
Yeah.
We need to be encouraged. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Folks, go to momsforamerica.us. Join the movement. Be part of it, of what it is, the great things that Debbie and the team are
Love to
doing
have
there with Kim and the team. Just amazing things. Get involved. You're gonna need it to care for that which is important to you. Thanks for joining me for Cultural Conversations. We'll talk to you next time. I am so excited to introduce TLN Plus, our brand new digital streaming platform. Now, you'll be able to take our faith-filled and family-friendly content with you wherever you go. Our TLN Plus app is available on all major streaming services as well as Android and iPhones. So be sure to download our TLN Plus app today. Friends, I want to thank you for supporting Cultural Conversations podcast, Meeting Cultural Challenges with Biblical Solutions. You know, my aim is to restore the art of respectful dialogue in dealing with the tough issues of our day from a biblical perspective. To see and listen to more great talks and interviews with interesting, inspiring, and intelligent people, visit tlnmedia.com/cultural conversations. And be sure to subscribe, like, and share our content with as many people as you can. It helps us out and helps us to help you by bringing you more great content. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.